Hi guys, it's Dylan from Bijou Diamond Jewellery in London with another watch video, and today we're taking a look at the Patek Philippe 5205G-013. So as with all my reviews, let's go back in time and look at the history of this watch. So Patek Philippe has been making perpetual calendars since 1889. And they've been making wristwatches with perpetual calendars since 1925, many different variations of the perpetual calendar. But in the 1990s, Patek really wanted to come up with a new movement, an option, like an intermediate movement, an intermediate option between just a normal date function watch, or just a simple date complication watch, and a perpetual calendar watch, which is a much more complicated movement. So they thought about ways to create that middle ground between the two, or that middle option. And in 1996, they invented and patented the annual calendar, which is basically a calendar function that you set once a year, hence the word annual. And the first watch to feature this new movement, the annual calendar, was the 5035, released in 1996. This watch featured the month, the day, and the date, and also a 24-hour hand, and of course, hours and minutes and seconds. It was really well received at the time because it meant that people could upgrade from the very simple complication of just a date function, but without having to spend so much to go up to the perpetual calendar. So it was a really, really nice option for people. And Patek really differentiated it from perpetual calendars by removing the moon phase and instead replaced it with a 24-hour hand at 6 o'clock. The watch changed over the next few years. We're going to skip now on almost 10 years to 2005. And look at the release of the 5146, which was a complete redesign of the 5035. There were a few other models between that time, but the most important is the 5146. The reason being is Patek really recognized the fact that a lot of clients were missing that moon phase look from a watch, from the perpetual calendars. Even though this was an annual calendar and a lesser complicated variation, they really wanted to have that same look that the perpetual calendar had. So Patek looked at bringing back the moon phase, and the 5146 in 2005 featured the moon phase for the first time on an annual calendar. So the moon phase now replaced the 24-hour hand they used to place on the 5035, and they also added to the dial a power reserve indicator at 12 o'clock. This watch is one of my favorite watches. It's absolutely beautiful, beautiful watch. The case is amazing on this watch. Hopefully we can do a review on this watch soon. But skip another couple of years on, in fact, just to the next year in 2006, Patek was playing around and experimenting with new technologies, and they actually released a special advanced research variation of the 5146 named the 5350 reference. And this advanced research watch again was an annual calendar, but featured some amazing breakthroughs in technology. And Patek really wanted to show that even though this was a classic watch, a dress watch, they could still apply the same incredible, groundbreaking, cutting-edge technology that other watches were using inside their classic timeless watches as well. Some features that this watch featured and then were carried over to other models were things like a silicone hairspring, which is obviously anti-magnetic, anti-friction, loads of other advantages to silicone hairsprings, and also ceramic bearings for the rotor, which means it doesn't need to be oiled, it's unlubricated essentially, and that means it lasts for much longer. And then skip a few years on now to 2010, and that is when Patek Philippe released the 5205 that we're looking at here today. But the first models they released were a grey dial, a light grey dial, and a dark grey dial, and both of them were, the watch was only available in white gold at this time. And on this watch, Patek reintroduced the 24-hour sub-dial at 6 o'clock. This is one of my favourite watches. The way they display the information on the dial is absolutely beautiful. Sculpturally, it's incredible, and also just the dial arrangement with the circles is just really, really beautiful looking watch. Later in 2013, we saw the release of some rose gold variations of this watch with both a white dial and a black dial, and then later in 2018, last year at Basel, we saw the release of this model that we're looking at here today, which is in white gold and features a blue dial. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the features of this watch. We're going to start with the clasp on this watch. The clasp on this watch is actually just a buckle. It's a beautifully finished, high polished mirror finish white gold buckle in the iconic Patek Philippe shape. Incredibly simple, there's not really much I can say about it. Of course, it's made from 18 karat white gold. Now moving up onto the strap on this watch is a high polish alligator strap. A really beautiful strap. I mean, all of Patek Philippe straps are absolutely stunning. They are kind of the best really in strap making. Very elegant, and the high polish on this strap really adds to that elegant, very classic and also kind of dressy look to this watch. Now moving on to the case. The case is made from 18 karat white gold. Is absolutely stunning. It's slightly different to the original 5035 in terms of what white gold it uses. A few years ago, Patek Philippe used to use rhodium plated gold, so that's how they used to get the white on the gold, whereas this is now kind of more like Rolex's gold, where it's actually white gold all the way through. It's official grey gold. It's actually proper white gold. And what this means is that when you wear the watch over time, it won't start to tinge yellow, or if you were to polish the watch, it won't remove the plating because the gold itself is not actually plated. So the case itself is actually a 40mm case size. It wears maybe a little bit smaller than that, but it is just an absolutely stunning case, just an absolute work of art. I've never seen any cases like this, and it's so sculpturally incredible and so sculpturally creative as well. That's something really that I have to say and give real credit to Patek Philippe here on this watch. Is most dress watches feature the same similar case, whereas this is totally different. They've really combined a modern feel with this watch with the essence of Patek Philippe, which is just pure classic timeless design. So these amazing lugs are probably where I think is the most interesting part of this watch. And these lugs are scooped out from either side of the watch, on the crown side and opposite side, and they're actually skeletonized towards the edges, the extremities of the lugs, which is just really beautiful to look at. Absolutely incredible design, totally unique. The whole case design on this watch is just so flowing, it just flows so beautifully. The lines are very soft and elegant. Looking now from the crown side and the opposite of the crown, just the sides of the watch features obviously its dimples for changing the annual calendar, and we've got a nice large crown which makes it extremely easy to set the time and fine-tune the time as well to an exact amount. I really love that about Patek Philippe's when they have the larger crown. And now moving up probably onto my favorite feature of this watch, or one of my favorite features on the case of this watch, is the concave bezel. It's just absolutely beautiful the way it scoops upwards. It's just so elegant. And then at the top of the bezel we obviously have our crystal, which is slightly domed, again really adding to that elegant look, the real beautiful curves and flows this watch has. Quickly before we move on to the dial, we're just going to take a look at the case back now, which is an exhibition case back, clear crystal case back, where you can see the movement inside. The movement is of course absolutely beautiful from Patek Philippe. It obviously features the Patek Philippe seal, which means that everything is finished to the highest level and highest standard. And just to put in perspective the level of detail that Patek Philippe goes into, is every single screw head is polished, mirror finished by hand, and the actual shank that these screws sits in is also polished by hand, is beveled as well. It's just, the attention to detail is absolutely incredible. It's a truly beautiful movement. Probably the only thing that's more beautiful than an automatic Patek Philippe movement is a manually wound Patek Philippe movement. Now moving on to the dial, we've got a beautiful blue dial. It's a sunburst blue dial, so that means it's laser etched. It kind of resembles the sort of effect that a CD has, where light is kind of cast out in these lines across the dial. It's also faded out, so it starts much lighter in the center of the watch and moves out to a much darker tone of blue towards the extremities of the dial. Absolutely beautiful feature on this watch. That's possibly my favorite thing about this watch is its blue dial. It's much darker than it will show online. The dial in real life, I don't know if it's just this one that we have here, but I think all of them are exactly the same in this respect, that it takes quite a lot of light to be able to bring that blue out from the dial. Otherwise, in darker light, it looks much more of a black dial, which suits in a way the much darker black strap. But yeah, the blue is absolutely beautiful. In a way, it's quite rewarding when you get the watch in that perfect light just to see the blue. Maybe my only complaint about this watch would be to see more of the blue, but at the same time it is just so stunning anyway. Now looking at the different details on the dial, we've got obviously our day, date and month indicator at 12 o'clock or around 12 o'clock at the top of the watch. And then at 6 o'clock we've got our 24-hour hand and also our moon phase. And in the center of the watch we have our hour and minutes hand and our white painted seconds hand. Really beautiful design, just so elegant the way they've designed the watch and the dial. It's very legible, especially with this blue dial and the white or lighter hands. Of course, the hands and all the indexes are hand applied. They're all high polished 18 karat white gold. The little tiny markers all around the edge of the dial as well are all white gold, and our window around the date at 12 o'clock is of course white gold as well. Totally beautiful. You can't really fault a Patek Philippe dial, it just looks stunning. Let's have a look now at setting the annual calendar. So there's dimples all around the watch that control different parts of the watch. The most important thing when you're setting your annual calendar is you ensure that the watch is inside its safe zone. And to do that, you must change the time to 6 AM. That's the recommended Patek Philippe safe zone or time for setting the annual calendar on this watch. So we're going to start with just above the crown. There is a little small dimple just above the crown, and that is to adjust your month. And now just underneath the crown, you have a little dimple pusher to adjust your date. And on the opposite side of the crown, the left-hand side of the watch, around 9:30 on the watch, we have our a dimple to adjust the day, and then just underneath that, at around 8:30 on the watch, we have a dimple to adjust our moon phase. And then to adjust the time, obviously you pull the crown out 2 clicks and then change the time that way. Okay, so that concludes the features on this watch. Would I own this watch? Absolutely yes. It is totally beautiful. Just every detail about this timepiece is incredible. It's the most perfect size for my wrist, I'd say. Some people may find this slightly smaller. It definitely wears smaller than 40 mil. I think that's partly to do with this one featuring quite a dark dial. But yeah, totally beautiful watch. Has the feeling of maybe quite a deep watch when in fact it's quite thin at 11.6 or 11.36 millimeters. So it's not really large, you know, it's actually thinner than a Rolex Daytona, which is a relatively thin watch. I did a video about a year ago of my dream collection of watches, and this watch featured in there, and I said this probably would be my daily wearer. I mean, I would 100% wear this for absolutely everything. I think it's just the most beautiful looking piece ever. Yeah, it really does suit me personally well, and I think it's one of the nicest looking watches on a wrist. Thanks guys for watching. Let us know in the comments what you think about this Patek Philippe Annual Calendar reference 5205G. Let us know if you would choose maybe a different gold color or perhaps a different dial. Let us know what other watch you'd own in the Patek Philippe collection. And as always, if you're interested in this watch or any other watch in the Patek Philippe collection, then don't hesitate to contact us. Our details are at the end of the video and also in the description. It'd be a pleasure to call this watch into stock for you.